One, two.
Only registered engineers, those who have just finished, they have qualified, they must come up front. Also those who are registered with Malawi Board of Engineers, but have not registered with Malawi Engineering Institution, because you need to take an oath as well, so you can come up front. Let's do it as quickly as possible. For your information, I just want to let you know that this oath will be administered by His Worship Felix Amstalida, who is the magistrate from Salima Magistrate Court. He is here to administer this oath this evening. And from our side, from Malawi Engineering Institution, will be guided by the Chairman of Engineering Council, Engineering Registration Council,
tikulandireni kuchokera muno boma la Salima. Dzina langa ndi Blessings Mpinganjira. Tili kuno ndithu ku Sunbird makamaka Livingstonia Hotel, komwe kuli mkumano wa Malawi Engineering Institution. Imene ndithu ndi mwambo omwe ma engineers onse amakhala akukumana pamodzi kukambirana nkhani zosiyanasiyana zokhudza ndithu ntchito yomwe iwo amagwira. Msonkhano umenewu wayamba lero pa 9 November ukuyembekezeka ndithu kuti uthe pa 10 November. Pakhalepa kuchitika zinthu zosiyanasiyana kati mwa program imeneyi pakhale ndithu pali panel discussion yomwe akhale akukambirana nkhani zosiyanasiyana zokhudza ntchito yomwe iwo amagwira. Mlendo olemekezeka pa mwambo umenewu ndithu nduna oona za mayendedwe amenewa ndithu ndi makamaka amenewa ndi Jacob Hara amene ali pano. Pabweranso ndithu anthu osiyanasiyana amene ali pano. Pakhalepa kuchitika zosiyanasiyana zomwe ndithu tikhale tikukuwuzani kuti ziyenda bwanji. Pakadali pano ndimpatsire amene akhale akuyendetsa mwambo umenewu kuti mwambo umenewu uyambe.
Good evening from Livingstonia Beach Hotel, where we are live on Times Television and Radio as Malawi Engineering Institution. This evening, Malawi Engineering Institution will administer an oath for registered professional engineers here in Salima. And this oath will be administered by His Worship Felix Kamtsalila, who is the magistrate from Salima Magistrate Court. But now allow me to invite up front the Chairman of Engineering Registration Council, Engineer David Mzandu, to lead us through in this process. A big round of applause for Engineer David Mzandu.
Honorable Minister, Honorable Minister of Transport and Public Works, the Chairman of the Malawi Engineering Institution Board, as well as the President of MEI, the Vice President of MEI, board members, Engineering Council members, distinguished engineering professionals, ladies and gentlemen. In a few moments, the engineers behind me will be taking an oath to make a pledge of commitment to the profession of engineering. The reason is that engineering profession affects lives of people. So it is important that they make a commitment to the people that they are going to serve. This is why they have to take this oath. Without saying too much words, let me hand over to the magistrate to take us through the oath. Thank you very much.
Good evening, Honorable Minister, and all the protocols observed. Allow me to administer this oath. So basically, you follow what I'll be saying. You are supposed to raise your hand light. I hope you are all Christians, right? I start. I, a professional engineer, do hereby make oath and declare as follows. That I am an engineer, and in my profession, I take deep pride. To it, I owe ceremony obligations. That I pledge to practice with integrity and fair dealing, tolerance and respect, and to uphold devotion to the standards and the dignity of my profession, conscious always that my skill carries with it the obligation to serve the humanity by making the best use of Earth's precious wealth. That I shall deliver and execute all my works as an engineer in a truthful manner without compromising the standards, procedure, and ethics to which an engineer is required to abide to. That as an engineer, I shall participate in none but honest enterprises. Particularly, I shall not engage in corrupt, fraudulent, corrosive, coercive, or obstructive practices. That I shall have full regard for the public interest, particularly in relation to matters of health, safety, and the environment. And I shall do regard for the sustainable management of natural resources. When needed, my skill and knowledge shall be given without reservation for the public good. That, in the performance of duty and in fidelity to my profession, I shall give my utmost. That, I shall, to the best of my knowledge and belief, abide to all provisions as contained in the applicable laws of Malawi, regulations, and bylaws, including but not limited to Malawi Engineering Institution Act, and the Code of Conduct and Ethics currently operating or those to be put in place from time to time. So help me God. Thank you, Your Minister.
Another big round of applause for our engineers. Thank you very much for taking that oath. I want to announce that they will pop the champagne tomorrow during dinner and dance. So please, your champagne is waiting for you tomorrow during dinner and dance. And then also let's see the new dancing steps as engineers, as professional engineers. Thank you very much. Let's clap hands for our engineers. And you may resume your seats. So after filling the forms, they will get back to his worship for authorization and the stamping. Thank you very much. We will now proceed with our program. And next on our program is the last presentation for the day. It's a presentation by the Engineering Registration Council. We need to learn about the registration process, and that's why we have this presentation. And making this presentation this evening is Engineer Eugenio Tebulo. A big round of applause for Engineer Eugenio Tebulo, who is in the Engineering Registration Council. Thank you very much. Another big round of applause for the engineer.
So, another big round of applause for me, please. Thank you, thank you. Honorable Minister, my classmate. The President of MEI and the Vice, all protocols of debt. I'm here to make a presentation from the Engineering Legislation Council, which will mainly dwell on the works done so far, achievements, and a bit of a highlight on some challenges. I would like all of you to be attentive, especially for the graduates who are trying to get registered, because some of the issues from the presentation will definitely come during your qualifying exams. Yeah, that's just a quick outline. I will not draw much onto it because you'll be able to follow as I go through the presentation. The ERC over the years has been working hard in trying to establish some procedures. So we've been working on a lot of documents which are meant to guide how the institution operates. So the slide that we see is just some of the documents that we've managed to conclude in this year, current. Some have been finalized, others are in draft form. Of interest, I want to draw you to the one that's talking about the regulation of the fees. It's been an issue over a long time where people have been asking to say, how much fees should I charge when I render my engineering services? So there are issues of undercutting, issues of overcharging, but now we've responded to that request, and we have come up with some regulations which are in draft form. At our council level, these have been finalized. So very soon they'll be proceeding to the next levels until they get gazetted. Also, I want to draw your attention to the other guideline. That is talking about the accreditation of engineering programs in Malawi. You may agree with me that we are in the era of lots of PhDs being offered, being honorary PhDs given, and also at the same time we are all aware that at times when we go out with our Bachelor of Science in Engineering for Malawi, sometimes we are not accepted as being such. And all this is because of how our accreditation of the engineering programs is done in Malawi. So we have come up with a document that's giving out the guidelines, and it's at the draft stage. Once this is completed, it will be issued to all institutions, including INCHE, such that every institution that aims or intends to start offering engineering programs will have to satisfy these guidelines, failing which they will not be accredited as an engineering offering institution. In general, for the 2.5 years that we've been in office, we've concluded several documents including those that I've just highlighted earlier. These that you see before me, including the next slide. I will not mention one by one because I understand I don't have much time. But may I call upon to everybody to please take time to go on the Mera website. All these documents are uploaded there. Acquaint yourself with them because they will guide you in several areas. Especially of interest, there are some guidelines to do with the mentor and graduate engineer relationships. Even the mentors themselves, how they should conduct themselves when they are carrying out the mentorship process. The qualifying exams, how they will be held so that there is always a standard, no ambiguity in the outcomes of the qualifying exams. We've noted over the 2.5 years of our tenure where the qualifying exam results are concluded as saying the candidate is satisfactory. One exam will say the candidate was outstanding. Another will say he or she was good. So the question is good, outstanding, satisfactory, excellent. Which is the best? Which one should we consider as acceptable? So we have come up with how the concluding remarks should be. And mainly it's in terms of being at least numerical, quantitative, so that figure everybody else sees, accepts, and understands. And it clearly stipulates which score would be considered as somebody who has passed and qualifying to be awarded the term as a professional engineer. So please get yourselves acquainted to those documents. Now, let me just quickly go through with you some of the registrations that as ERC of this term has achieved. The table shows that we have not registered a fellow yet in this year current, but we've had a few graduate engineers and the professional engineers, both from where we've had to decline to register because of the outcome of the exams. We saw our colleagues taking oath here. We don't want to register a person who is not capable of undertaking that noble profession with all the ethics that it goes with. So if we don't see that somebody is satisfying those, we will not hesitate but to decline to register. So take this seriously. The next slide just gives us now the similar results, but for the 2.5 years that we have been in office. The next slide is now telling us the total registered members in all the classes. So far, MEI has 2 fellows that we are also registered during our tenure, 201 professional engineers, about 1,000 graduate engineers. We would be happy to see these 1,000+ graduate engineers very quickly progressing into the professional class. So please, you can give ERC another round of applause for the good work done so far. We've commenced issuing out the new certificates that we have developed in this tenure as well as the practicing cards which are now started being issued out. So please, if you are a professional engineer, get hold of the secretariat to be issued your practicing card. These will be issued annually upon you paying your annual membership subscription. Regarding the mentors, during our tenure, we have at least appointed 51 members. So far from, I don't know, a year back from the time of Board of Engineers, we have a total of 119. You will notice 2 things here. Majority of the mentors are from civil engineering. It's not a coincidence. This is how civil engineering is coming forth with lots of emphasis to try to get registered. Yes, we can argue why, how that's happening, but I will not hesitate to mention that electricals and my fellow mechanicals, we need to jack up. We need more mentors. I did mention earlier on we have about 1,000+ graduate engineers who are in need of mentors. Now, the guideline for mentorship stipulates that a mentor should have a maximum of 5 graduate engineers. If you say 5, if you take 5 times 119, we can only have 600 graduate engineers being attached to a mentor. So where will the 400 go? Should they wait for another 2 years or so? That's why we are calling on all of us, the graduate engineers to quickly migrate to professional engineers, the professional engineers to be members for the stipulated time so that they can be appointed as mentors to continue training and mentoring the upcoming professional engineers who will be drawn from the graduate engineers. So next, I just want to quickly discuss with you on the other critical tasks that we have undertaken as ERC. We have conducted. This was an interaction with all the business captains in this country. So Blantyre, Lilongwe, Nzuzu, we did. The emphasis was on them to understand the MWI Act so that whenever they are recruiting, they need to abide by that, because there is a slide that will just remind each other, it will come towards the end, which states that practicing registration is a prerequisite for practicing. If that is contravened, both the one who is practicing and the one who is harboring the one who is illegally practicing, they all are liable to prosecution. The other critical task we undertook was to develop some CPD guidelines, of which we are just working on having an electronic management platform. However, I'm well informed by Secretariat that this month and next month there will be a dry run. So come January, they will be fully rolled out. Just to show how serious we've been, you can see the number of meetings that we have held as ERC, most of which were virtual. Surely that's not me. Okay, I'll still continue to guide this. This shows how committed this council has been, because all the virtual meetings that we are holding were actually at the council's own resources, time, the bundles, and everything. But we had to sacrifice because we did notice that there was a lot of backlog to be attended to. That's why we have managed to develop all these lots of documents, as well as try to push on the registration numbers. Now let's look at the challenges that we have encountered and some of the solutions that we have tried to put in place. The first one is the number of mentors, as I alluded earlier on, is lower than the number of graduate engineers that need to be mentored. The requirement is that one is appointed a mentor 7 years practicing after being registered as a professional. So if you're a professional engineer this year, you're supposed to wait for 7 years before you can be appointed as a mentor. But because of the low numbers, we try to flex a little bit to take it down to 5 years, just to at least boost up the numbers and take care of the increasing number of graduate engineers who have been coming forth. The second challenge has been financial constraints. ERC, we've not been able to implement our planned activities. We had our annual list of activities, but we have not managed to implement everything due to financial issues. So we are just calling for more and more registrants, because with that, the financial capacity of the Secretariat will be there and we'll be able to achieve our planned activities. And the last one is on the, we have a registrar who also doubles as the CEO. And because of the financial challenges, the Secretariat is mainly him and just a handful of members of the Secretariat. So you can appreciate that with the growing number of registrations, it's becoming a challenge to actually handle and manage all that. And having migrated from the Board of Engineers to MEI, we have lots of issues to address, a lot of changes to be implemented, and such implementations usually have to be supported by some documentations and regulations. So it's been a challenging task. Of course, I understand there have been capacity building at the Secretariat, but once again, we need the money, ladies and gentlemen, to ensure that our operations are happening so well. The last 4 or 5 slides, I'll remind all the engineers seated or standing in this room. The first one is to do with the prerequisite of practice, which I did allude to earlier on. There's Section 25 of the Act, which says, save where the Act otherwise provides. A person shall not engage in the practice of engineering in Malawi or hold himself out as being entitled so to do unless a person is registered under this Act. And this is a serious section that we all should take home, apart from what the minister says we should take home. This one too, please add it on the list. A person who engages in the practice of engineering in contravention of the subsection commits an offense. I will leave out the remaining sentences because we can always go back to the Act and refer to. Code of conduct, another serious and critical expectation from us engineers. Again, we've seen our fellow engineers taking oath. And if you are listening attentively, they have committed to abide by this code of conduct. So there's part 3 of the regulation, which is stipulating this code of conduct, sections 8 to 12. There's a primary obligation where a person registered in this Act shall conduct himself in such a manner as to uphold the reputation of the profession. And then there are all these other expectations from that conduct, code of conduct. One interesting one is that that person shall not mispresent data or its relative significance in any Malawi engineering institution report. We need to maintain, develop, and employ appropriate levels of knowledge and skills for the task for which we are employed. This is in line with the CPDs. We don't want to sit on whatever mathematics formulas that our lecturers, I want to mention names here, we are busy feeding into our brains. The world is always evolving, so we need to move together. The code of conduct continues, where now it says, shall not knowingly permit the publication or use of his data, reports, maps, or other professional documentation for unlawful purposes. We need to be fair and impartial in the provision of advice and judgment. Yes, we know we are in tough times, but let's refrain from that. That's why since we as the ERC came into office, we introduced the oath taking to remind us that whatever the case, we need to follow the code of conduct and the ethics. Another interesting one shall not, in undertaking his professional activities, discriminate on any ground. Very interesting. You shall not undercut when charging your clients. Another interesting one. In line with the guidelines that we developed on the fees, because others were undercutting just to get a job. Other clients would say, no, you are too excessive, you are too expensive. I'd go for that one who is cheaper. Yet the one who is cheaper maybe is not a professional engineer. That's why we have come up with regulations in line with the code of conduct that we have in our regulations. The last one is to do with unfair competition. These ones I'll read one by one because they are also interesting. The use of the use of professional designations to which he, or I would say she, has no entitlement. We don't want just to say engineers. We've been discussing some quarters where we have a sound engineer. Do we know that the word engineer is protected? How many sound engineers do we have in this country? And we need to prosecute them. Oh, sorry, maybe not now, but eventually we have to, because the name engineer is protected. So if you're not an engineer, please don't play a role of an engineer. You have to register as a graduate, as a craft person, as an engineering technician, whatever, and operate under a professional engineer. The second one is the offer of inducements to secure work or advancements. I've already said that, yes, we're in tough times, but still, this oath we are taking should always remind us to refrain from this act. The undertaking of another person registered under the act with prior appointment relating to any work or breach of the regulatory framework of engineering. In conclusion, we are saying in our 2.5 years, this ERC has done a tremendous work in developing various documents that are critical for maintaining the reputation of the profession of MEI. Of course, we are still currently working on a number of guidelines, like we would want also to work on the accrediting of engineering education programs. There's also one which I just want to share after doing the stakeholder consultations in the 3 regions. It's our wish to also undertake now similar, but for the various individual sectors. So don't be surprised, Honourable Minister, if we come to your minister and say, could we have an engagement on this? Then we go to the Minister of Energy, the Minister of Water, then we go to the tobacco industry, we go to the power industry. Individually now, we have to ensure that all the leaders in these particular institutions are aware of the act and they put it in practice, because they are liable to 50 million fine if they don't, with some years in jail, and for the individual, 5 million and some years in jail. Ladies and gentlemen, this was the best presentation ever. I thank you for your attention.
A big round of applause for the best presentation of the day. Thank you very much, Engineer Eugenio Tebro, for the quite inciting presentation which you have just done and made at this conference. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll shortly be going into live panel discussion, and because of that, we'll have to curtail debate in terms of reaction to Engineer Tebro's presentation. So if we have got questions, let's reserve those questions for tomorrow. We'll provide some time so that you can ask some questions and clarifications. Also, as we meet Engineer Tebro during dinner, we can also ask some of those questions, Tebro, and also those in the Engineering Registration Council that we have here. Thank you very much. So meanwhile, we'll ask that we prepare the stage for the live presentation. As we are doing so, I'm sorry, for the live broadcast of the panel discussion. And as we're doing so, I just want to announce that the sponsors for this event, we have those in platinum category. We have 4 of the companies that sponsored us. We have to give them a big thanks. Thank you for the support. So we have number 1, Electricity Generation Company of Malawi. If we can clap hands for them. That's Egenco. We also have Motor Angel. Let's clap hands for Motor Angel. We also have National Water Resources Authority. Thank you. This one is coming in for the first time, and you can already see it's coming in with a bang. I don't know what's going to happen next year, ladies and gentlemen. Your guess is as good as mine. So thank you very much, National Water Resources Authority. And Airtel has been our partner over the years. A big round of applause for Airtel. Under gold category, we have National Construction Industry Council, also a long-time partner. A big round of applause. We also have under gold Palm St. Gobain. Some of you will be going back with bags that you found on the chairs, courtesy of Palm St. Gobain. They have been partner for the first time, and we hope they will remain with us. A big round of applause for Palm. Then we also have Malawi Energy Regulatory Authority. This is a massive organization which has done wonders in this sponsorship. So I would certainly ask, without prejudice, that we clap a big round, big hands for Mera. And we also have, under God, Mark Steele. Mark Steele has always been our partner. They deserve a big round of applause. Thank you, Mark Steele. Under silver, we have Malawi Bureau of Standards, MBS, our partner. A big round of applause. We also have Open Connect Limited, another big round of applause. We have Presken Limited, another big round of applause. We have Old Mutual, another big round of applause. And we also have InfraWorks Development Limited. Let's clap hands for them as well. And under bronze category, we have Blantyre Water Board, BWB. Thank you. We also have KISS. Another round of applause for KISS, who has been our partner for a long time. And for the first time ever, we have Serengeti Energy. They are generating power from solar in Nkota. A big round of applause for Serengeti. Then we have Deck Construction, another big round of applause. CAS Civil Contractors, another big round of applause for CAS. And then we have our long-time partner as well, Plame Construction, another big round of applause. And we have OPCO Limited too. They also deserve a big round of applause. Thank you very much, our sponsors. And we also thank you, individual sponsors that you are here, that you have made it to the conference. This conference, like the Minister alluded to, has surpassed the previous conferences in terms of the numbers. We have registered more than 400 participants in this year's conference. We need to clap hands for ourselves. So as we are preparing the groundwork for a live panel discussion, let us help out with the change in terms of the setup for the sitting plan for the live panel discussion. Just for your information, the AGM, which was supposed to be held today, has been shifted to tomorrow, somewhere before lunch hour. So please, let's all plan to attend. Those that are paid up members of Malawi Engineering Institution, let's attend the AGM tomorrow before lunch hour. The exact time you'll be informed tomorrow. Thank you very much. So let's enjoy as we're waiting for our host to take us through in the live panel discussion. We have some new surprise entrant into the panel discussion, and you'll hear that from the host, Brian Banda. So, ladies and gentlemen, let us wait until we get to the time that has been allocated for us for the panel discussion. I thank you very much, and I thank you for being a good audience, very, very active, and let's continue being active even for tomorrow. The program continues until tomorrow evening when we wind up with dinner and dance. So those who took an oath, please meet the magistrate outside so that he can endorse your documents as soon as possible. Please.
Tinangari what for?
A very good evening and welcome to Salima, where we are broadcasting from tonight. Those of you watching us on Times Television and listening to us on Times Radio. And if you're also watching us outside Malawi on Times 360, we welcome all of you in Malawi and around the world. We are meeting here in Salima, courtesy of the Malawi Institute of Engineering, and we happen to be in the midst of the 2023 Engineering Conference. And one of the biggest agenda of the conference is to have a discussion. So I'm profoundly honored that I am able to come to Salima and join engineers. It's always a challenge talking to engineers, and I hope I will be able to manage these kinds of discussion. We will be talking on building back better, and this is a discussion that engineers will probably enjoy talking about. But I want to also say that you'll be able to give us your comments, and within the course of the hour, we'll be able to give you a number that you can text us and probably be heard via SMS or WhatsApp. Ndimati, for our Chichewa audience, tikulandireni kulikonse kumene mukutionera komanso kutimvera madzulo ano. Ndine Brian Banda, ndikulankhulani kuchokera mboma la Salima kumene ma engineers akukumana. In fact, ndikubwera ine ndikamamba za ma engineers ndimangoona ngati mwina ndi 100, koma ndaona kuti ma engineers alipo ambiri, and it's a big group. So we want to appreciate our engineers madzulo ano, and we'll be tikukambirana kwambiri pa the role of engineers. Kodi ma engineers angathandize bwanji pomanga zinthu zabwino, and ngati zinthu sizikumangika bwino kunjaku vuto ndi chani. Tinakumananso ndi challenge ya ngozi zogwa mwadzidzidzi zimene zinatigwera, katundu wambiri anaonongeka. How can we build back better? Tingamange bwanji zinthu bwino. So kuti tikambirane nkhani imeneyi, for us to go through this discussion, I'm profoundly honored to be joined by the president of Malawi Engineering Institute, Engineer Afonso Chikuni. A round of applause tonight for Engineer Afonso Chikuni, our president for the institution. I would also like to welcome Engineer Gerard Konje. He's the CEO of the National Construction Industry Council. Bwana Konje, welcome, and a round of applause for Bwana Konje tonight. We are also joined by Mr. Peter Chimangeni. He's the Director of Recovery and Resilience from the Department of Disaster Management Affairs. Mr. Chimangeni, all the way from OPC, thank you very much for joining us tonight, and another round of applause for Bwana Chimangeni. We are also honored to have Mr. Simon Denher, who is the Director for World Food Program, WFP. Welcome tonight, and a round of applause for Mr. Simon. Lastly but not least, we are joined tonight by Mr. Dennis Chinseu. He is the CEO of Blantyre City Council. Bwana Chinseu, thank you very much for joining us tonight, and another round of applause for the CEO. And we are also profoundly honored to have the Minister, the Honorable Minister of Transport and the Public Works, the Honorable Jacob Hara. He decided to watch us from the sidelines, but he will be taking part in this discussion. I had a candid discussion with him a couple of days ago, and it's nice to see you again, sir. Another round of applause for the Honorable Jacob Hara. I want to start with you, and as I said, it's an interactive discussion. In the course of a discussion, if you want to make a point or you want to compliment something, just raise up your hand and our protocol team will be able to give you a microphone so that we are all part of this discussion. When we say building back better, Mr. President, Afonso Chikuni, engineer, what are we talking about? I want us to start on that note tonight.
Thank you, Brian, esteemed engineers and guests. The emphasis on building back better is on resilient planning and development of infrastructure, especially after disaster. So it concerns the post-disaster recovery and development process, especially for infrastructure. But it also provides insights in terms of developments to take care of future disasters. And it goes beyond simply installing infrastructure because it aims at creating resilience and sustainable communities. We have a lot of examples. The recent one that people remember is the Cyclone Freddy, where we saw that it wasn't specifically one issue. The disaster and the aftermath of the disaster would be explained by various aspects, including engineering, including policy making, including bureaucratic institutions. So it's a mix, and basically the conference this year is focusing on this because of the importance of resilient infrastructure. We saw how the energy infrastructure was affected, the water infrastructure was affected, and again, the roads. So the objective really is that how can we build resilient communities in the future? Is it only engineering solutions? Can it be explained or better implemented by a mix of solutions, getting insights from the setup in the bureaucratic institutions that we have, the policy-making setups, and aspects that should allow collaborative planning for restoration of the, especially after disasters, as I said, and then again building for the future that when disasters happen, now that they're happening frequently and with an intensity that we have never seen before, how should we plan and develop infrastructure so that they become resilient for the future? Let me start like that.
Okay, we have now occurrences where these things are happening quite often. Cyclone Freddy. I want to come to you very quickly, Engineer Konje. Are you happy with what we are putting up, and how can we build infrastructure that withstand all these things that are happening to us? Engineer Konje.
Thank you very much, Brian. I think, first of all, coming on the heels of Cyclone Freddy,
yes,
we saw the devastation on our infrastructure. Actually, our infrastructure was ruthlessly audited. Now, doing an assessment of the Cyclone Freddy, there are quite a number of lessons that we learned, because I personally visited a number of areas that were affected, where our infrastructure was either destroyed, but some infrastructure survived. And some areas that were actually affected were areas which normally you wouldn't expect to be affected, because normally you would be thinking of floods in the lower Shire. But this time around, mountains were erupting. There were actually 4 elements that we noted, and that will inform how we can build back better. Number 1, there has been some ignorance in terms of the hazards that these disasters pose. And this stems from whether it's floods, whether it's landslides, whether it's earthquakes, and related natural occurrences. So number 1, we need to be aware. We need to be sensitive and be aware of such hazards. From the Cyclone Freddy, we organized a stakeholder meeting where we had various stakeholders, and particularly this one, we had geological surveys who also made a presentation about the geological mapping of the whole of the country in terms of looking at all prone areas. And this study was completed around 2019 or 2020. And when the disaster struck, all the places where mountains erupted are clearly marked on that geological map. The information is available. So if we were to study those maps and then use them in our planning and designs, we would have avoided those areas because they were red flags. The second item was in the context of how our infrastructure is designed and constructed. Several damages that were caused were not necessarily caused because some of the structures were of poor quality, but some elements within the same were not taken into account during the planning and design. What comes to mind is one of the bridges we visited. The bridge structure was intact, but the approach was actually eroded and the road was cut. When we studied the topography of that particular area, if we only had lined the shoulders of that particular approach to the road, 30 meters each side, we would have allowed the excess water to pass on top of that road without destroying the road. The second aspect is the element of maintenance. You will discover that bridges that were destroyed because the abutments or the edges of the bridges were not protected. Were not protected, so as that erosion was happening, and perhaps erosion happened for a number of years, and finally the structures gave in. Which means if we have a proactive way of maintaining our infrastructure, some of the damage would have been prevented. I'm talking about roads, but we can also talk about buildings. If you look at buildings in these developed areas, you'll discover that drainage system was blocked, most of it, because they were not maintained. And then the way fences are constructed, they don't allow water to pass freely. So a retourlane, the water accumulates, and then flooding happens, and then the fences collapse and the houses collapse. So basically, it's a culture that we can cultivate as a country in order to avoid some of these. But it requires that sort of awareness.
Yeah, the point that you have just referred to, where the bridge is not strong, the edges have gone, the examples that you have given us tonight, who should we point at? An engineer? The planner? I want to understand, because you are giving us problems, but then who should we point at on these failures?
Thank you very much. Actually, I'm highlighting these elements so that we are able to know that the solution to these challenges are very simple.
Okay.
They are not complicated. It's a culture that we need to adopt as a country. And this challenge cannot be addressed by a single profession or a single entity. It's a challenge that we have to be aware as a country. As an individual, when I'm driving around, I am observant of what is happening on the roads of Malawi. I am observant when I enter a building at Capitol Hill, at any local authority in a district in Chitipa. I enter a building, I can be able to see this crack is developing. Something is wrong about this. We will need to be fixing those elements in time.
We'll come back to you, Engineer Konje, in a moment, but I want to go to CEO for Blantyre City Council, Mr. Chinseu. You have been on the receiving end in as far as the cyclones are concerned, especially what comes to my mind is Cyclone Freddy. I want you to share with us your experience and what you have learned and what we need to do in terms of building better.
Thank you so much, Brian. To begin with, indeed, if I'm to share the experiences regarding the Cyclone Freddy, I think it's something that I would say it's difficult to describe, simply because of the devastation that we had there. I think so much of our infrastructure was destroyed by the cyclone. We even lost lives because of the cyclone. However, what I want to indicate is that there is a bigger lesson that we have learned from there. It's time we have to call a spade a spade. A decision once made, no moving back. The reason being, going by the circus that we are in as far as the effect of the second flood in Blantyre, you realize that we are moving in circles. Here we are, we have a regulatory authority saying this area is not habitable, but then through other means, you find that the people are insisting that this is a place that we can stay. Now, as you are trying to go through and make the necessary corrections to the problem, you find that here we are, we have the rains, we have the cyclone, and then we have lost lives, including infrastructure. So the biggest lesson is let's take on the decision that we have made. Forget about what is going to come from your left or your right, but what is important is what is it that you have to do. Now, going back to the bigger picture, I want to just echo on what Engineer Konje had indicated. I, for one, has also argued with a number of stakeholders, specifically because sometimes when things go wrong, our pointer goes towards the engineers. But then what I've noted is they work on what the customer wants. Now, what I've noted of late is, or what I've noted along the way is that at times we would want to do shortcuts because we are limited by the resources that we are having. As a result, the job that we're going to do, you find that we haven't done a good job. I'll give you a very good example of the various roads that we are having. If you are to check on most of the roads that we are having in our cities, in our localities, you notice, for example, a simple thing like a drainage is not there. Now, here we are, the second come, and then the water has nowhere to go. Where does it end? It ends on the road. And then people will be pointing at an engineer to say, no, these guys didn't do a good job. But then for them, they worked based on what the customer wanted. They know for sure if we want a complete package of a road, then let's make sure drainage is part and parcel of that. But then because the customer says, I'm limited by resources, let's just have the road and then forget about the other things. We are going to do them later. Here we are, all of us have lost. Now, moving forward as one of the regulatory authorities in the country, what we are saying is let's now forget about the traditional designs or traditional way of doing things. We have learned a lesson. We have a number of stakeholders who have come up with a number of observations as well as recommendations on how we have to move forward. So for us as an institution, even as those people who normally scrutinize submissions that actually come from designers in terms of the plans that people submit. What we are saying is, let's not be moving forward. Let's have plans that should be able to contain parameters that should be going towards achieving resilience. That's what all of us should be looking up to. Otherwise, if we are to continue doing things or business as usual, then we'll continue singing the song of losing roads, losing bridges, losing buildings, simply because we are not careful of the changes that we want to make to the designs that we have.
You talked of someone saying, we want a road here. And you as an engineer, you are giving him an advice. And sometimes they say, just give us what? 30% of I didn't hear you very well there.
Well,
so for example, a road would cost 5 million. And you as an engineer, you're saying, for us to give you a good road,
yes,
we need to budget for 5 million. And then whoever is hiring you says, can you give us a road for 2 million? Is that what you are telling us?
Okay, what I'm saying is, here we are. Even in our offices, we have engineers. They'll tell you, here I am, I'm looking at, let's say, a road, 6 or 7 kilometers of a road.
Yeah.
So in terms of their submission, they say, if you to have a complete package of a road that should have drainage, a road that should have a pedestrian walkway, a road that should have a cyclist walkway, this is how much it's going to cost you. But now, because I'm saying what I have is 10 million, but then 7 kilometers of a road, a complete package is 20 million.
Yeah.
Then what I'm doing as a client, I'm saying, instead of giving me the 7 kilometers of a complete package, give me 7 kilometers, but take away some of the parameters that are supposed to be there.
So
that's where the problem is.
As an engineer, how should you therefore address or respond to the client when he says, forget about the rest, just give me the road without drainage, etc., etc.?
Let me respond as one of the regulators around. What I want to indicate is, as an institution, we are also moving towards making sure that we actually come up with some standards that should determine what we should be approving as an institution. Just for a start, as it is now as an institution, we don't have building bylaws. Now, one step forward that we have done is to make sure that we have the building bylaws in place. Our understanding is that whatever is being submitted by a client should be conforming to that. So anything outside that is not something that we are going to accept. So for me, I'm not going to respond to say, okay, as an engineer, I've got a right to say yes or no. But what we are saying is, as a regulator, are we happy to continue getting something that we know is going to cause problems in future? That's not what we should be heading, or that's not the direction that we should be heading to. So all I'm saying is, it's time as regulators, we just have to make sure that let's do something that is right for the country, something that is right for the residents, something that is right for every stakeholder, so that we should have our structures that no one should complain of in future.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Let's bring in Mr. Chimangeni from Dodma. Would you share with us and our viewers also and members here your experiences in handling emergencies of this magnitude, and what would you recommend we should do as a people?
Thank you so much, Brian. I think first let me thank the organizers of this event. Basically, it was just a month ago that we attended another function by the Built Environment Polytechnic, focusing much on the issues of disaster risk management. And here today, we are with the engineers discussing a similar thing. And the title or the theme that we have chosen, the Build Back Better, is also anchoring well, aligned to the targets that Malawi is mandated to achieve, which is stated in the Sendai framework of the disaster risk reduction from 2015 to 2030, and we are midway. And one of the key targets that we want to achieve in the Sendai is to substantially reduce disaster damages to critical infrastructure and disruption of the basic needs. So it is well thought a topic. But coming to the question that you have asked, I think if I'm to give you the experience, first is to say DODMA's mandate is to coordinate and direct. We are not the direct implementers in terms of all the 4 cycles of the stages of the disaster risk management, which are preparedness, response, recovery, and building resilience. So we are there to coordinate. That's why if you look at the issue that has been highlighted, Malawi since 2015 to the date, we have had 5 State of the Nation disasters declared, and that we managed to do the 5 post-disaster needs assessment. And cumulatively, we didn't do the PDNA for the Fred and Anna, but cumulatively for the 4, the 2015 flood, the 2016 drought, the 2019 Cyclone Idai, and the 2023 Cyclone Freddy. Cumulatively, we are talking of over 1.2 billion of damages. This is not a small thing. And if you factor in the Freddy, we are talking of over 2 billion US dollars. That's the damage. And the recovery cost is estimated nearly 3 billion US dollar. So it has not been an easy ride for the department, and also looking at some unquantifiable losses, loss of lives, injuries. So these are part of the things that the department is eager to work and reduce. So what is it that we are doing as a department, and what we are reading into our sectors, our stakeholders? Firstly, what we have done is to, because from 1991 to today, before March this year, we didn't have a proper legal instrument that was aligned to mitigate or to build resilience. Our overall response, goal has been to provide relief items to the victims. So it was the Relief and Preparedness Act. But what we've done is to review the law to make sure that now we are more proactive than reactive. So the law is actually demanding the department and all the stakeholders to make sure that we work together to reduce the impact of the disasters.
Thank you. Let's hear from, that's Mr. Peter Chimangeni, Director of Recovery and Resilience at DODMA. We want to hear now from Mr. Simon Denher, who is the Deputy Director for World Food Program. Your experience in the disasters that we have had, and what would you advise as we build back better? What are things that we need to look at as a nation?
Thank you very much, Brian. First of all, let me express my gratitude to the Malawi Engineering Institution for inviting the United Nations World Food Program. I'm sure all the engineers in here must be wondering what has World Food Program got to do with engineering. I can guarantee you there is a lot that we have to work together on. WFP provides food assistance in more than 83 countries to more than 80 million people. Coming back to Malawi, we are working very closely with the government and government institutions. Basically, our activities in Malawi speak to the Malawi Vision 2063 and the MIP1. And sitting close to you is one of our key partners in what we do in Malawi, which is DODMA. Let me get back to where does engineering come into the work of WFP. WFP delivers about 2 million tons of food every year, of which 80% of that is moving by road. We move food by sea, by air, by trains, by road, most of it. But sometimes we move even by camels and donkeys when we fail to reach the people that should be reached. Let me come back to what happened during Freddy, and the Director of Recovery and Resilience is sitting next to you to attest to that, because we were operating together from Blantyre. So when the roads were cut off, particularly it's Meso 4, I think, when it was cut off, we could not reach the southern part with the food. So what was the impact on WFP? We had to use air to deliver food, because basically people were marooned and nothing else could reach there, not vehicles, not anything. So we had to airlift food and drop it to where people were. The cost of a helicopter is $500,000 per month versus hiring a 30-ton truck to deliver. When bridges are cut off, when roads are cut off, we can't do our work effectively. Or rather, we still try to do it by other means, but then the cost multiplies because the infrastructure has broken. So coming back home, where do engineering fit into the WFP work? We have some collaboration that we do with the Ministry of Transport and Public Works. We are the co-lead in the transport and logistics cluster. So basically, most of the movement of food that happens in here is coordinated by that department, and WFP is a co-lead in that cluster. This is where discussions are done in terms of